I'm delighted to be able to introduce our next speaker. She comes to us from Canada. She is a musician. In fact, she's on the top of the charts in Canada. She is an author and also an activist. And her whole life has been dedicated to catalyzing, moving humanity into a healthier place, spiritually, physically, and mentally. She is the only recording artist that has sung and recorded at the North Pole, farthest north of anyone. And it was during that experience that she had an inspiration and a vision, which she has carried forward on, and that is a proposal called MAPS. It means the Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary. And this would be 3%. It's the largest marine sanctuary that's ever been proposed. It would be 3% of the oceans. And she has taken this forward. It's a UN treaty. She has an amazing advisory board that includes Jane Goodall and Luisa Hoyas of Racing Extinction and the Cove. Her name is Parvati. And this is the kind of bold, fearless, courageous type of proposals that we need on the planet. And the bottom line is that everything north of the Arctic Circle in the Arctic Ocean is off limits to oil and gas exploration, and the fisheries, the industrial fishing would be terminated in order for fisheries to regenerate. So please welcome Parvati.
So hello and good morning, and thank you very much, Sally, for that moving introduction, and thank you, Chip, as well, for the opportunity to be here among such amazing people. I feel truly privileged to be among you all, and I've been, listening to everybody speak, and I feel your hearts and your passion and your dedication to our shared mother, right, the planet Earth. So my name is Parvati. I am the founder and CEO of a Canadian all-volunteer, non-for-profit. We're in the midst of transitioning to charitable status both in the United States and Canada, and we're dedicated to a healthy planet. The title of the organization is Parvati.org. And this is who we work for, as I'm sure you feel you work for the same. We work for the planet. And for millions of years, long before humans ever walked the Earth, the Arctic Sea and the Arctic ice has been frozen and kept our planet cool. Though our world today is busy and filled with activity, due to its cold and ice, the Arctic Ocean has remained peaceful and beautiful, and until recently, mostly inaccessible. The Arctic Ocean is one of the most important ecosystems on our planet. It's a habitat for rare and endangered species. The many whales who dwell in the Arctic Ocean, are pivotal to help reduce climate change due to the whale pump effect. They bring nutrients from the bottom of the ocean, bring it to the surface where it fertilizes tiny phytoplankton that then capture carbon out of the air and helps to have a beneficial effect on the entire ecosystem. The Arctic Ocean is also home to seals, millions of beautiful seabirds, hundreds of species of fish and deepwater coral, which are vital to the survival of the oceans. In short, the Arctic Ocean has always been a natural sanctuary, and we must keep it that way, which is why I'm here today. In addition to being a volunteer for Parvati.org, I'm also a touring musician, a yogi, and author whose life was forever changed by the dream of a great blue whale. During an unusually hot summer in Toronto, which is where I'm based, I was scheduled to go on tour to Asia, but I had a recurring dream that I was lying motionless on ice while a great blue whale swam below. That changed my life ever since. I postponed my tour to Asia and traveled instead to the North Pole to help raise awareness of the melting polar ice. 3 weeks later, I was in a remote village in the high Arctic on my way to the North Pole, where I was greeted by 2 Inuit elders who came and said to me, "Oh, you're the one who's come to do healing on the planet. We know because the whale told us." So in that moment, I became very aware that I was part of something vast and purposeful beyond my understanding, and that we are deeply and profoundly interconnected, and that if we are willing to listen, that nature's voice and intelligence will work through us. Here I am on Ward Hunt Island, a small uninhabited landmass that's in the Canadian Arctic Ocean, where I gave technically the most northern musical performance ever. I was there with my then music manager, and now happy to say music manager and husband, who's also in the audience today. I just want to point out Rishi, because thank you for being part of this journey. We were there together, and it's amazing to have that kind of support. En route, we met with Inuit, we met with elders, we met with ecologists and scientists. I spoke on the city council, I did presentations at schools, performed at schools, and we heard the unsolicited and unanimous message: the ice is melting, animals are suffering, animals are dying, people are suffering. Please tell the South to stop polluting. So that has really charged my work ever since. After I returned, I discovered plans for seismic testing in Canada's Arctic Ocean. Seismic testing, which you see in the photograph here by Kristen Asland, is when oil companies seek for oil and gas in the bottom of the ocean by blasting sounds that are 100,000 times louder than the sound of a jet engine every 10 seconds, 24 hours a day. I felt in every cell of my being that I had to do all I could to make sure that this doesn't happen. It has critical effect on the marine life there that survive on sonar, so that spoke to me very deeply as a musician. And it brings untold devastation to our oceans. So I rallied friends together and specialists in their field, and we founded Parvati.org. Our first order of business is the creation of MAPS, the Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary. I'm really happy to share that after dedicated grassroots effort, the planned seismic testing that spurred the founding of Parvati.org was quashed. Thank you. It was a group effort. But seismic testing in the Arctic Ocean continues to be a threat. It is only the beginning of the danger to the Arctic and to our world. What most people don't know is that the polar ice is our planet's air conditioning system. It secures the balanced weather and food that we all need to survive, but it now faces an extraordinary threat. Polar ice reflects 50% of the sun's heat away from our planet. But today there is 75% less Arctic sea ice in the summer than there was just 50 years ago. So the exposed Arctic water now absorbs 90% of the sun's heat, so that parts of the Arctic Ocean are 4 degrees Celsius or 7 degrees Fahrenheit too hot. In February of 2018, temperatures at the North Pole in a sunless winter, for the first time in history, rose above freezing. Scientists are calling what's happening in the Arctic a death spiral. The more the Arctic ice melts, the warmer our world gets, And the warmer our world gets, the more the Arctic ice melts. What's happening in the Arctic is affecting all life worldwide. As the ice melts and global weather patterns are destabilized, floods and droughts are on the rise, hitting hardest in vulnerable and low-income areas. A heating planet means water and hunger crises. Because of climate change, 1,000 children die every day, and over 400,000 people per year. Sea level rise, caused by the loss of polar ice, is one of the biggest contributing factors to climate refugees. Climate change-related weather events have displaced 21.5 million people in the past decade alone. At least 275 million people live in cities that are vulnerable to rising sea levels. If we don't act now, sea level rise will redraw the map of the world and displace billions. In addition, some business interests in the Arctic are acting in ways that are harmful. Other than Arctic oil, which scientists warn must stay off limits if we want to keep the world from heating up more than 2 degrees Celsius, commercial fishing vessels are now trawling there, again damaging our oceans. And large ships break up the ice, and their dirty fuel turns the ice dark so that it can't reflect the sun's heat, further accelerating the thaw. We need leadership from heads of government worldwide for peace and conservation. But instead, boundaries in the high Arctic are under dispute as countries seek access to natural resources and shipping routes. According to leading biologists, 50% of our planet must be protected in order to prevent mass extinction. But as you can see on this map, only the areas that are colored are currently protected in the Arctic Ocean. The problem is truly massive, but I believe, and so do many, that thankfully there is a simple, immediate, and effective solution. MAPS. The Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary is the world's largest international peace park. It stops all activity north of the Arctic Circle in the Arctic Ocean that harms the melting polar ice and ensures the regeneration of this essential ecosystem. What I love about it is that it also catalyzes a swift pivot from fossil fuels to renewable energies by taking Arctic oil off the table for good. And it also inspires and pivots governments from short-term benefit for a few to the long-term good of all. MAPS also, as Sally mentions, almost doubles the current amount of marine protected area in the world, and it places conservation where it's most needed. It sets a strong precedent so that the goal of 50% protection can be reached. So how does MAPS work? In white, you can see the region of MAPS where it will be protected. It declares the Arctic Ocean north of the Arctic Circle free from exploitation of all kinds in perpetuity. To realize MAPS, we need a key modification to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So we created a treaty and translated it into the 6 official languages of the United Nations, distributed it to the 193 member nations. MAPS enters into force when 99 countries sign on, including those with territory in the Arctic Ocean. How we can get there? We inspire action through mass education for immediate conservation. And this is our 3-point plan. Government acceleration, grassroots empowerment, and global activation. For government acceleration, we are in constant contact with heads of nations worldwide to secure MAP treaty signatures and are working with the United Nations. We brought the MAPS treaty to COP21, COP22, 23, will be at COP24. We also had the privilege of presenting at the UNGA 72. For grassroots empowerment, we know that governments act when people demand it. Our electronic petition makes it really easy for people worldwide to do so. So we create also social media and letter writing campaigns to inform and empower citizens worldwide to hold governments accountable for maps. For global activation, we have at our disposal the power of modern media to penetrate, permeate, and pervade consciousness around the globe with maps. For example, I had the privilege of having success on a song on Pop 40 radio called I Am Light. Maps was then able to be promoted to millions of listeners worldwide and television. With the creative content you see here, actually, that I'm dedicating to maps, and by partnering with media moguls and with celebrities as well to boost the signal, the aim is to awaken an unstoppable inner call for action within the hearts of humanity, in the general public, and our world leaders alike. And it's working. People all over the world are recognizing the value of maps. Our volunteer team is growing worldwide from Australia to Uganda, with maps ambassadors educating large groups of people on the importance of maps and gaining petition signatures on the spot. Our allies are also growing, including the Jane Goodall Institute, Mission Blue, Climate Reality Canada, Ocean Preservation Society, and I'm very happy to share that Captain Paul Watson is our newest supporter and endorser of MAPS. The MAPS treaty signatures also have started to come. The Prime Minister of Samoa here is the first to sign, and we're in negotiations with several other countries with more signatures expected soon. The melting Arctic ice isn't just an Arctic problem. It's a global emergency. What's happening in the Arctic is hurting all life on Earth, and it's getting worse. But it doesn't need to be that way if we act now. With very little, we can make a massive difference in billions of lives. With the advancement of technology and the speed at which our environment is changing, this is a pivotal moment in human history. MAPS began with a dream. We could keep it that way or make it a reality. The clock is ticking, but the choice is yours. We are all heroes on this MAPS journey and all part of the solution. If you're with an organization and would like to join signmaps.org, a coalition of NGOs worldwide who are taking action for MAPS, please be in touch. Signmaps.org. And to know more or to join the MAPS movement, you have your phones handy, and Rishi's right there. I'm going to give you his cell phone number. It's on the screen, 416-890-5878. Just send him a text message. We would love to meet with you and discuss how we can together realize MAPS. Together, let's keep our planet cool and all beings safe for generations to come with MAPS, the Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary. From my heart to yours. Thank you very much.